Well, look, now that we're all here, sure, we may as well get started. Good evening and welcome to episode 30 of Shelf Analysis. Here live on the YouTube channel for the first time. Normally, you'll be finding us in Facebook in the Ricochet Book Club for the first night. And from now on, you're going to be able to find us here live on YouTube. Hello, YouTubers. Hello, people who don't normally do Facebook. How are you? Welcome to tonight's program. If you want to have a look back through the rest of all of the previous episodes, all 30 of them, you will find them here in the YouTube channel as well. If you're watching us on RTE Culture, rather at a slightly later date, how are you? And if you are watching us in the Ricochet Book Club when this gets posted later, you missed the chance to have the chats, to have a live conversation and to talk to our guest tonight, who is the legendary Val McDermid, who we're going to talk to in a few minutes. There's a couple of little bits and pieces of news and notice that I want to get through to you. Where am I going to start with? I'm going to start with this, mainly because bookshops reopened this week, or at least many of them did. Congratulations, well done, Irish bookshops, because I realized this is not the easiest thing in the world to be doing right now. However, I loved this. This turned up in the book club today, just in case you missed this over in the Ricochet Book Club. I give you this. Went to the library yesterday, was handed my book in a brown paper bag through a side window that overlooks a car park. It felt like a drug deal. This is just, that's made my week. It's, already it's been a rough week. And reading that, libraries reopened this week, of course, as well. Thank you to whoever it was who stuck that up in the Ricochet Book Club as well, because there's a lot of that knocking around at the moment. There's very little else news-wise I have for you this week. I do want to flag this with you, though. Obviously, Shelf Analysis is live every Wednesday night here on the YouTube channel from now on. But we will have bonus episodes. There'll be one or two, and it's mainly because I have a load of people I want to talk to, and once a week kind of won't cut it. So every now and then there will be a special bonus episode of Shelf Analysis going forward. I stuck this up again in the book club today, and I was quite astonished. I said, look, when would you like, what time of the week works for you to have a bonus episode go out? I suggested Saturday night at 10 o'clock. Nobody was interested in that. It turns out so far, the main suggestion from you guys is Sunday evening at 7, because it gives you something to look forward to before the week has to start again. And that's okay. That is a poll that is currently running in the Ricochet Book Club. If you are a member, go and have a look, go vote in it. For now, it looks as if Sunday at 7 might be the goer. Maybe, Thursday at 7 is doing quite well as well. And, I'm flexible and I'm relatively happy to go with whatever you guys want. There will be a bonus episode of Shelf Analysis, not this week, possibly next week. Next Wednesday night, we have a fantastic guest for you. There may be a bonus episode next week as well. We'll see how things pan out. They are episodes you are going to want to pay attention to. Now, I haven't tried this before, but it was something that I wanted to plug. So bear with me with this, as it probably goes wrong just for a minute, okay? Stick with this.
This Bloomsday,
and then I asked him with my eyes to ask again.
experience the complete RTE recording of James Joyce's Ulysses.
And then he asked me, would I? Yes, to say yes. My mountain flower.
RTE Radio 1 Extra.
And first I put my arms around him, yes.
From 8 a.m.
And drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts all perfume, yes.
With tailored explainers, podcasts, interviews and more on RTE.ie.
And his heart was going like mad.
The complete Ulysses.
Yes, I said yes.
June 16th, RTE Radio 1 Extra from 8 a.m.
I will, yes.
Bloomsday on RTE. You will, yes.
I do. That's me, and that's me. There you go. I do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is that, of course, that I work for RTE. I think it's a great idea. It's happening this coming Bloomsday. It is on, of course, one of my beloved digital radio stations at RTE, given that I work for one of them, and Radio 1 Extra is also one of our digital radio stations. So starting at 8 a.m. this coming Bloomsday, which is Tuesday, you will have the entire of Ulysses. There's a bunch of other Ulysses things all happening across the weekend on RTE as well, including my simulcast with Gold and RTE Radio 1 is this Saturday New time of 5 to 7 is where you'll normally find it, but this Saturday is 5 to 6:30 because there's a documentary on between 6:30 and 7 about Joyce, including some readings from Edna O'Brien from her new book about James Joyce and Nora Barnacle. You'll find more details of that on the RTE Radio 1 website. That's for another day, but that's a fantastic video. It's really well put together by the guys in RTE, and I liked it very much, and I thought you guys might like it a little bit as well. Before we go to our guest tonight, let us see what Karina, our houseplant, is reading. In case, look, if you're brand new to this, you're not going to understand why a houseplant gets to come on, read a book, and recommend one every night. It started with the very first episode of this we did 30 episodes ago, when I was attempting to figure out whether or not I'd be able to do this whole interview thing and one person on one side of the screen and one on the other, because I'm literally running this whole thing by myself, furiously pedaling underneath. So my first interview was with a houseplant. It was with Karina, one of our houseplants. And she's been on every episode ever since. Hello, Karina. Are you there? What are you reading at the moment, Karina? You are reading, and this is always new to me as well, because I'm not part of this process. Francis Macken's You Have to Make Your Own Fun Around Here. Karina, how are you doing today? Is all well? I can tell that seems like a relatively contented breeze that is blowing on you there furiously from the left-hand side. That is Francis Macken's brand new book. You may have heard her. She was on the very last episode of the book show that we did on RTE Radio 1 before the current series finished up as well. Enjoying it, Karina? Yeah? In a lot of leaf movement means yes kind of thing? Okay, that's a moderate amount of leaf movement. Let's leave it at that. Karina, reading Francis Macken's You Have to Make Your Own Fun Around Here. Thank you very much. Okay. This is episode 30 of Shelf Analysis. And our guest tonight is somebody who I've really wanted to talk to for quite some time. And I'm genuinely thrilled that when I literally fished for this on Twitter, and she said, yeah, sure, that's fine. It's not a bother. And it's lovely to have people like that on the program. She is, of course, one of the most famous crime authors in the world. Joining me, I'm going to find out where from because I don't really know, is Val McDermid. Val, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all the better for seeing you. Tell me, first of all, where are you? What part of the world are you in?
I'm in Edinburgh.
Okay.
It's my house in Edinburgh, and I'm sitting in my office in my house in Edinburgh. So that's why there's piles of books scattered everywhere and shelves of books behind me, because it tends to be chaotic in this particular part of the book storage. Although, in my defence, the rest of the books are all properly shelved.
That's what they all say. They all say the rest of my books are correctly shelved, as opposed to the ones that I have behind me. Is this so where you are right now? Is this where you would normally work, or is it what sort of space is it?
This is where I would work. This is the desk at which I write. The books on the shelves behind me are part of my archive, so they're short story anthologies or things I've written a foreword for, books I've otherwise contributed to. And then there's various stacks behind me of books that I'm either waiting to be read or books that I've got there for reference purposes for something else I'm working on. And one or two books that I end on are ones that are file copies of books that are currently waiting to be sent someplace else.
Because you had said to me that people had had an issue with you having end on books because they've seen pictures of it, because people get a bit weird about that.
Yeah, people think that somehow this is not an appropriate way to store your books, but these are not books that are going to be, like, as it were, on open shelves. If you like, these are the stacks.
And the stacks hidden in the back. Tell me a little bit about the last, you say, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, and about how that's affected you, both your work and personally as well.
Well, we've been in lockdown here. Now this is week 11, I think. For the first part of it, really, it wasn't so very different from what I'd normally doing at that time of year, because that's the time of year where I write the book. So I stay home and I don't go out very much, and I don't do very many events. And I do go for a walk most days, where I will be walking down the street, either talking to myself or pretending to talk to my partner, but actually talking to myself. So for the first few weeks, as I say, it wasn't so very different. We both had a mild form of the virus quite early on, and that left us pretty tired and a bit of brain fog afterwards, but we got past that. So I wrote the book. It took me longer than usual. I found it quite hard to focus quite as tightly as I normally would, and I think that's got something to do with the fact that we're all experiencing a kind of underlying anxiety at the moment. There's a sort of low hum of anxiety in all our lives. We're lucky, I think, to be in Edinburgh because it's a great city for walking around. We've got parks, we've got the river to walk by, and the city's empty. You can look at buildings properly. I've seen all sorts of things that I've never noticed before because I'm not too busy trying to avoid standing on a tourist or somebody on a unicycle trying to give me a flyer. So it's been quite a privilege in a way to have the city to ourselves.
Dublin has been a little bit like that as well, but is there also an element of, because I've done that as well, I've gone and walked in the centre of Dublin when during almost complete lockdown because we're close enough that we could walk as well. Was it strange? Was it creepy? Was it slightly unsettling?
It's very unsettling. I mean, it does feel sometimes like, you're the last survivors after the apocalypse. You walk down a busy street in Edinburgh, the heart of Edinburgh, a street that's normally thronged with people, with cars, with buses, and you can walk up the middle of the street because there's nobody else there. George the Fourth Bridge at 7 o'clock on a weekday, just the two of us. Really strange.
You were talking,
of course, always in the back of your head. I mean, are the friends who are not having such a straightforward time of it? We have friends who have been ill. We've got friends who've lost family members, and we've got friends who are on their own in a one-bedroom flat with no outdoor space. And so, I'm very well aware how privileged I am in all of this. We have a garden. We've got enough space to not be on top of each other all the time. I think we've been very fortunate.
Tell me a little bit then, and maybe I'm hoping I have this right, in that you were talking about writing quite recently. Is that Still Life? Is that the upcoming book? And can I squeeze you to tell me maybe a little bit about Still Life, which is the next one?
Yeah, Still Life is the new Karen Pirie novel, which is out in August. It's the 6th Karen Pirie novel. And from the title, you might guess that it's got something to do with art. And the main sort of strand of the story is a body gets fished out of the Firth of Forth one morning, and it ties into a mysterious disappearance 10 years before. And Karen Pirie, who is a cold case detective, starts looking into this and finds that not much is as it seems to be. And she has another parallel case going on at the same time where a woman has died in a road accident, and when her sister has gone to sort out her house, she's found in the garage a VW camper van with a skeleton in it. And her sister didn't have a VW camper van. Her sister barely drove. So question is, whose body and how did it get there and when and why? And
that's out in August, right?
End of August, yeah.
Coming out in August, okay. Before I get to the reason that we have authors on this program, which is to recommend books here as well. I know you're almost as rabid a football fan as I am, but for obviously a very different club, for Wraith Rovers. How are you feeling about football starting to kind of rear its head in the world again?
Well, it's difficult to see how it's going to go. I mean, I think the idea of having matches behind closed doors is probably fine if you're one of the top clubs where people will pay to watch. But if you're a lower division club, your income depends on people coming through the turnstiles. And I don't imagine that there are enough Wraith Rovers fans who could pay enough money for this to be something that we could sustain. So really, I don't know how we're going to manage to get the show back on the road. And it's very worrying. I think that there are some clubs that will go under unless the big boys learn to share the pennies out a bit more evenly. I'm also involved with the Homeless World Cup, which takes place every year, and as it says, it brings together teams of homeless people from 40, 50 countries all over the world. And unfortunately, that's had to be cancelled this year because of the situation with the COVID virus. So I'm just in the final stages of editing an anthology, which will be published digitally on Kindle on World Cup Day, which would have been the final day on July the 5th. And there's more than 20 writers have donated stories, poems relating to the themes of football and homelessness. So that's something else I've been doing to stop me getting bored.
Fantastic. What's that going to be called?
It's going to be called Home Fixtures.
Home fixtures, fantastic. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that as well. Can I ask you just before we get to this as well? Are you somebody who, because obviously, for most authors, when a new book comes around, festivals are part of the experience. There's sometimes something that authors endure. There's sometimes something authors that genuinely look forward to. Obviously, probably for the new book, a lot of that experience is going to be like this. It's going to be online, and there's going to be big virtual festivals. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's important to still communicate with readers, to still, have that sense of sharing what you're doing with the people who enjoy the books and who enjoy hearing about the process that goes into it, and just enjoy hearing us speak. But I have to say, what I really miss is the camaraderie of the festival circuit. It's the place where you bump into your friends, where you go for a drink, where you meet people for lunch. It's the place where you go and listen to other writers talking, and the things they say often illuminate your own work to yourself, but also sometimes give you a little nudge in the right direction of something you've been struggling with, something you've been trying to work out for yourself, and you can go away and think, oh yeah, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that. And so a logjam gets unblocked. It's more than just, going to the festival and going up on the stage and doing your thing. There's a whole sort of other part of it that I think is really important. And I'll be honest, I'm missing that aspect of it. It's great to be able to communicate with friends and all that, but I miss the face to face, and of course I miss playing with the band. We've got a crime writers band, the Fun Loving Crime Writers, which started off as a kind of almost as a joke. First time we played at the Edinburgh Book Festival, I think a lot of people came along because they thought we were going to be a bit rubbish and they'd be able to laugh at us forever. And it turned out that we were quite good. And in fact, we played Glastonbury last year.
I've seen the footage. I have, and absolutely, you guys acquitted yourselves fantastically.
So we've not obviously we've not been able to play since the last gig was in Paisley in February. We had to cancel all the rest of our gigs for this year, and that's an absolute heartbreaker, because that, I think, for all of us has become a really important part of our lives. Again, that sense of camaraderie, of friendship. Being a writer is mostly about sitting in a cupboard by yourself. It's nice to get out of the house.
Yeah. If anybody wants to ask Val a question, you can do it in comments here on the side of the video as well. But look, let's get down to the reason that we're here. Every author is asked to recommend 3 books, usually, although that's flexible and has become more so recently. What are you going to start with? What's the first book that you think we should be reading?
I'm going to start with My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. Oyinkan was actually on my New Blood panel at Harrogate last year. One of the things that I've done for years now is host the New Blood panel at the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival, and it's a great privilege. I get first dibs on all these debut novels, and I get to pick the writers whose books I've enjoyed most, that I think are fresh and exciting and different and going places nobody else has gone. And this book certainly does that. It's set in Lagos, Nigeria, and the narrator, Korede, is basically, and you start off the book, she's clearing up after her sister has murdered her latest boyfriend. And it gradually becomes clear that this is not the first time this has happened. And so it's comic, it's dark, it takes you to surprising places. And one of the things I think about it that's also really interesting is it has a great sense of place. I've never been to Nigeria, so I don't know how authentic it is, but from everything I've heard, it gives you a real feel of what it's like in that city. And it's a voice that's fresh and it's different. And I guarantee you won't read another book like it this year.
Yeah, when it came out, whatever it was, tail end of last year, whenever it came out and it arrived in and I was reading it, I had that sense as well of, I don't know if I've ever read anything that's quite like this book. And as a result of which, it's been turning up on shortlists for awards and deservedly so as well. But it's immense fun as a book, and sometimes that's what we need right now if you like your books.
And it's smart, it's got a real crack to it, a real sort of whip smartness to it, and I think it's really It's unusual. I mean, she said to me that when she started writing it, she didn't really realise. She didn't think she was writing a crime novel. And I'm like, how can you not think you're writing a crime novel? It's full of dead bodies and tips about how to get rid of the bloodstains.
Yeah.
But it is also, I mean, quite seriously, it's a novel about family and about the history of a family, how that weaves its way through a couple of generations, and how it shapes the nature of relationships. And by the end of it, you do understand why she's willing to do this for her sister and what it is in their past, their history, that has made them stand in the relationship to each other that they have.
Yeah, it's genuinely fantastic. I completely agree with you on that. Okay, that's your first book. What's number 2?
Number 2 is, I'm afraid this is a proof. I don't have a finished copy of this yet. Val McDermid, The Good Turn. This is the third of Dervla's books featuring Detective Inspector Cormac Riley. And although Dervla's moved to Australia now, it's still quite clear that Ireland has a very important place in her heart. I think she writes really well about the landscape, about the cities, and about the rural landscapes. And I think there's a real sense of place in these books that brings them to life. There's great characterization as well. Cormac Riley is a really interesting cop. He's had a checkered career in the past because he's a man of great integrity, and this hasn't always made him popular with his colleagues. And this book, really, there's kind of 3 threads running through it, and for much of the book, you're just not quite sure how they all fit together. There's some police corruption, there's a child abduction, and there's another child who is mute, basically, will not speak. So there's a lot of history to be unravelled here. Cormac is working with another young cop who makes a terrible error of judgment, which has awful consequences for himself and for Cormac. And these stories wind around each other. And there's a lot of surprises along the way here. There's a lot of things that you don't quite expect, you don't quite see coming. And I think Dervla writes really, really well. Again, she was on my New Blood panel a few years ago. And I'm, thank goodness. It's always nice when you pick someone for New Blood and they go on to write even more and better,
You can say, I was right in that instance. There's nothing finer than that. That feels pretty good. Okay, that's book number 2. And what have you picked for your third choice?
My third choice is Mary Paulson Ellis, The Inheritance of Solomon Farthing. And Mary's books, again, they're really complex narratives, and they have they span different time frames. This one has sections set at the end of the First World War, sections set in the present day, and then the time in between is woven through them. Solomon Farthing, the eponymous hero, is an heir hunter. That's heir as in H-E-I-R, and it's his job to track down the estate, the person who's entitled to estates that seem to have no obvious heir. And that draws him into his own family history and also other people's history. It's a book that's about Edinburgh. It's a book that's about the complicated ways that friendships and families weave around each other. It's about love, it's about death, it's about money, and at its heart is this crucial set of encounters at the end of the First World War.
That's fantastic, and that's book 3 for your choices. I've just remembered, so I'm having to do this process of listening to the books you're recommending. I forgot to say happy birthday. Sorry about that.
Oh, that was last week.
That's not the point. I've never spoken to you before. It was not revealing anything, but it was what we call a roundy birthday. It was one of the important numbers, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 65 when you're supposed to retire, but I have no intention of doing that. I take as my models Ruth Rendell and P.D. James. I mean, P.D. James died at 93, and she was in the process of writing something. When Ruth Rendell died, she was in her mid-80s, and she had a memory stick in her handbag the day that she had the massive stroke that basically was the end of her conscious life. There was a memory stick in her handbag with her final novel on it. So, I'm planning to keep going for as long as I can possibly manage it.
that would technically put you mid-career about now, roughly, sort of.
Roughly, yeah. Well, if I keep going, I was saying this the other day, I would be very happy to keep going if I'm in good health for as long as Phyllis and Ruth. And someone cheerfully said, "Oh, that means you've got another 20-odd books to write then."
Not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing. That depends on the work.
It's a good thing. I mean, I'm currently I'm planning a quintet of books upcoming. So I'm not shying away from the long view.
I have questions for you that have come in from people just here on the side as well. I am going to start with, it's less of a question and more of a compliment from our own Liz Nugent. Liz says, "Can I recommend Val's Cooking the Books on YouTube? She and her wife Jo have a cookery show. I have not seen anything as entertaining since Keith Floyd." Why did you start doing that?
Well, we thought it was with so many things on YouTube and other channels that are basically just talking heads of writers just talking heads. I thought
here we are.
Something a bit more interesting, and so I thought, well, there's a lot of eating goes on in the course of the books, and I thought it'd be quite fun to show some of the recipes that Karen Pirie or Tony Hill and Carol Jordan eat when they're doing their cases. And we started off with Hamish's hipster porridge, and people liked it, so we've been doing one a week ever since. Not sure how many more we've got up our sleeve, but it's been a lot of fun doing it. And my partner Jo, who is a professor of geography for heaven's sake, has discovered skills as a video producer. So this is the great thing about lockdown. People are discovering all kinds of new skills. I mean, here's you in your living room doing a whole radio show.
Believe me, we've made all of this up as we go along. Absolutely understand where you're coming from. Eva Doyle.
It's nice to see Liz. Can I just say hi, Liz? We were both in New Zealand last year at the same time, and we had a lot of fun.
I'd said, was it somebody I was speaking to the other day who had said, I think it was Sinead Gleeson I was speaking to, who said Val has a real love of New Zealand. Is that true? Yeah,
well, I have a post as a visiting professor at the University of Otago in Dunedin, and we were there for 2.5 months last year. And we were supposed to be going back this year for 2.5 months again, but I'm really not sure. I don't think that's probably not going to happen. We're supposed to go in September. It's impossible to imagine that right now, but we'll be back next year for sure. For me, it's almost like being in Edinburgh. It's just like being in Edinburgh on the other side of the world. But I really like New Zealand. I like the people. I like the atmosphere. I like the pace of life, and I like the very good beer.
I cannot disagree with you on that one either. I got Eva Doyle just says, I'm also a big fan of Dervla McTiernan. I'm so chuffed. I have similar taste to Val because I've been a massive fan of hers for years. Again, less of a comment, more of a question. And Nuala McCartney just says, "Hi Val, I was wondering what your thoughts are in relation to short story writing. I've read The Ministry of Whiskey, which I enjoyed, but is this a form that you enjoy as well?"
I struggle with short stories, to be honest. I haven't written that many short stories. I've probably written more novels than I've written short stories. I find that the ideas don't come to me very often for a short story. And it's always very embarrassing when people ask me to contribute to an anthology, and because I can never think of anything off the top of my head. Sometimes I'll have a wee burst and I'll write 3 or 4 short stories in a relatively short space of time, but it's something I find very difficult. And often, particularly when I was writing the Kate Brannigan novels, which had lots of different plots going on in them, whenever I had an idea for a short story, I'd think, oh yeah, but I could use that as a subplot. So it would get sort of sidetracked. I have huge respect for writers who can write the short story form swiftly and well. And the crime genre has quite a few of those. Ian Rankin's one, Lawrence Block is another. Writers who just seem to be able to turn them out with great facility, but sadly I'm not one of those.
The book is the new one is going to be Still Life, and it's out in August of this year. I'm thrilled we managed to make it to Edinburgh for a second one of these after we did have Ian Rankin on just before his birthday a little bit earlier in the series and the run. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight, Val. It's immensely appreciated, and I'm glad to see that so far anyway that things have been treating you well, and I know that many people are looking forward to the brand new book coming out in August. It's been lovely talking to you tonight.
That's been great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And stay safe. Thanks a million, Val. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
And that is, of course, the incredible and wonderful Val McDermid, who is in Edinburgh. And that finishes out our second time in Scotland. Is it second time in Scotland? It's 30 episodes in. You tend to forget at this stage. If this is the first one that you're watching tonight, thank you so much for watching this, which was the first episode going out live on YouTube. If you're watching this on RTE Culture, every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, there's a brand new live episode which happens on the YouTube channel. Just look for Ricochet Shelf Analysis on YouTube, which is where you'll find it. And you'll find the episodes all in the Ricochet Book Club as well. Next, will I? I will. Sure, I'm here now. Next Wednesday night, so this night next week, on the back of his upcoming and brilliant new novel, Utopia Avenue, our guest is going to be David Mitchell here on Shelf Analysis this time next week. And I'll have a bonus episode for you with one of the most famous authors of the last 50 years. And that's coming up in the next 10 days. You might want to hang around. All sorts of people hang around here. Other than that, you'll catch me on RTE Gold at 10 a.m. weekdays and on RTE Radio 1 again doing the simulcast this coming Saturday between 5 and 6:30 with the Bloomsday documentary immediately after me. Have yourself a brilliant week. See you sometime next week, 7 o'clock here on YouTube. Bye.